Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Natalia Lee and I'm the author of the young adult novels Highborn, Way of Spears, and the soon-to-be-released Song of the Dryad. Today I am going to be telling you a little bit about my experience as an English major, what it was like going to college, getting my English degree, and kind of my thoughts on whether or not you need an English degree in order to be an author. Let's get started. Actually, first, I'm gonna go and make myself some tea because this is going to be a chatty video and I feel like sipping on some tea is just gonna make me feel a whole lot more comfy cozy about this. So I'll be right back. Much better. It is super hot though. I think it's too hot to drink at the moment, so let's wait on that. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. When I was a bit younger, let's say in like middle school and high school, that was at the peak of my I would say that was the peak of my reading years so far. I got obsessed with young adult novels. I read Twilight for the first time when I was really young, and that just jump-started my interest in YA. And I was reading so much of it at the time. And I remember always turning to the back to read the author bio, and most, if not all, of the author bios I read had something to do with so-and-so went to this university and got their degree in, literature or language or English or, teaching. And I felt like all of these authors had majored in something pertaining to language, whether that was English or a foreign language or teaching language to students. I felt like all of them were kind of in a group together and I was being left out. And I felt like, okay, if I want to write and if I want to be an author, then I need to get this degree and I need to major in these things that these authors are majoring in so that I can be successful. But that, I have found, is not the case at all. By the way, I am repping my school shirt today. I went to CSU and I loved it, but we're about to talk about that. Okay, so just to begin with, I thought that I had to have a degree, especially an English degree, in order to be an author. And I thought that majoring in English and studying English would teach me how to English better. So let's talk about what really happened in my college experience. So I graduated from high school and I was not sure what I wanted to do. I was writing at the time, but I had never finished a book before. I very much wanted to be a successful author, but I couldn't finish any of the manuscripts I was working on. So I graduated from high school and then I had to make the decision about whether or not I was going to go to community college, like in the area where I lived, or if I was going to kind of move away and go to a university to study. And I ended up deciding to spend my first year at a community college, and that was an amazing decision, and I'm extremely grateful I made that decision. It was difficult because I had different people and different influences in my life that wanted me to do different things, so I really had to align myself with what I wanted. And I chose to stay home, take a little break, and study at a community college. So I spent my freshman year at a community college, and it was a lot of fun. It was kind of easy because I took simple classes that I enjoyed. Like, for example, I took Japanese, which was not a simple class, but I love the language. I love anime. I love reading manga. So I was fascinated by it, very excited to be studying it. So I didn't perceive of it as a very difficult topic because I was so excited to be studying the language. So I took Japanese, I took watercolor, I took drawing. I was in 6 hours of art class every Tuesday and Thursday while I was in school. It was just such a relaxing experience for me. I got my simple English credit out of the way, I got my math credit out of the way, which I certainly didn't want to have to take at a university. And I just got my basic fundamentals done while I was at community college. But I did go into my advisor. I went into my advisor multiple times to make sure that every single class I was taking would transfer to the university I was interested in, which is CSU. So I spent a year there, I saved up some money, and after that, I decided to go to a university. And while I was at the community college, I didn't have a major. I wasn't majoring in anything. I was undeclared. I was just enjoying myself, taking art classes, a language class, and then getting those fundamental core classes out of the way. So jump forward into my sophomore year, and I was extremely excited to get accepted into the school of my choice, which was Colorado State University. And I do want to pause here to say that I am very aware and grateful of the fact that I was able to do this, because so many students do not have the ability to go to a four-year university, and I completely understand that. Not everybody has that privilege. So I am extremely grateful for all of the opportunities that I was given to attend a university. I had some highs and some lows, and we're going to talk about that. But sitting here today, I am extremely happy that I was able to go. It was an amazing opportunity, and if any of you have that, that opportunity to be able to go to a four-year university, I would highly recommend it. Like, step through that open door and see where it can lead you. So my sophomore year, I went to CSU. I didn't know anybody there. I had to move away from home. This was my first time moving away. So I decided to live in the dorms, even though I didn't have to, because as a sophomore, it was not a requirement that I live in the dorms, but I decided to. And I met some of my very best friends living in the dorms. It was an absolutely amazing experience living with those people. I was living on a substance-free floor. We had to apply to get onto that floor because I didn't want drugs or alcohol anywhere around me. I didn't want it messing with my studies and with my experiences and with my healthy lifestyle. And I was surrounded by like-minded individuals, and it was absolutely amazing. Like, the friendships I made that year in college, and then those friendships became stronger over the next 2 years that I was living up there. They warmed my heart, because those experiences and those relationships taught me how to have meaningful friendships and bonds with other people. So I'm extremely grateful for that. And if any of my friends are watching this, you guys are awesome. Thank you for being there for me. So my sophomore year, first semester, I decided to major in equine studies. I am crazy about horses. I've always been crazy about horses, and CSU has an extremely strong equine science program. So I decided to study it, and I was good at it. I enjoyed it. I got hands-on experience. I was riding and working at a barn at the time. I was not yet living there. I would eventually move to that barn. Barn, farm, whatever you want to call it. But I was getting experience. I was really good at what I was doing. I was comfortable in it. But I knew that it wasn't really right for me. I'm not a very science-minded individual. I am absolutely terrible at biology, especially microbiology. I can grasp macrobiology concepts, but micro, I cannot get it. I had 2 biology classes when I was in high school. I took honors bio and then AP bio. I don't know why I did that to myself. And then I studied regular microbiology my sophomore year, first semester of college, and it whooped my ass. It was so difficult, and there were so many more biology classes coming up in order to get a bachelor's of science that I knew it wasn't for me. It was not going to work. So I remember the last day of winter break before I returned to school, I sat down and I completely redid my major. I was on the internet for probably 2 or 3 hours. My mom and I were writing down all the classes, all the times, the schedules, everything I would need to do. And right there that day, I decided to switch my major from equine science to English with a concentration in creative writing. And then I also had a study of anthropology. I can't remember what it was called, but pretty much at CSU, if you majored in English, you had to have a second field of study, and I decided to study anthropology because I'm very interested in cultures, people, and how people interact within those different cultures and with each other, which kind of makes sense for somebody that likes to write stories about people, right? So second semester, sophomore year, I was officially an English major with a concentration in creative writing. Here's what I thought an English degree would be. I assumed I would be reading a lot of books, reading a lot of fiction, studying said books and learning a lot about how to write good fiction. That's what I was hoping I would get out of it. And then at the same time, I was excited to be studying English because it's something that I would say that I excel at it naturally. I've always been a very language and English-minded person. I can spell things well naturally. I'm just good at words. And I know that not everybody's like that. For example, my dad and my sister, I love you two, but they're really bad at spelling. Like, spelling and words and letters just don't come naturally to them. So I know that words don't come naturally to everybody, and so I'm very grateful that words are something that I've always been good at. So I was moving into this English degree being excited about hopefully, thinking that I was going to excel at it because I was really struggling with the science-based classes when I was previously the equine science major. As an English major, I got to study many different topics, which was wonderful, and in a way a little bit frustrating because when you're going into an English degree, you might, like myself, I knew exactly what I was interested in. I was interested in English with a concentration in creative fiction writing. That's what I wanted to focus on. But as an English major, I was required to study many different topics. So a few of them that I can think of off the top of my head were women's literature, British fiction, poetry, of course, and then we also studied creative writing because that was my concentration. So in my English degree, I read a lot of books. Some of them I really enjoyed, and some of them I really never want to see again. One of my professors, I remember, he was such a brilliant man that he spoke in such a way as to confuse everyone that listened to him. I would sit in his lecture and not understand a damn thing he was saying because he spoke like at such a philosophical level that I could not keep up with him. But on one of our exams, one of the questions he asked was, "What is the first name of the main character in the novel we're reading?" And I got that question wrong because I wasn't reading it at all, and actually about 50% of the class got it wrong because this book was so dense and difficult to get through that people were just abandoning the reading and not even doing it. Sorry, James Joyce, but your work is just not for me. All right, now that leads us to kind of the poetry section. I studied a lot of poetry, and I discovered that I enjoy reading poetry and interacting with it on a very personal level, but I hated studying it. I used to have to write these long papers about poems, and I'd have to literally break the poem up into every single stanza, every word and line and rhyme, and I had to break it down to try to figure out exactly what it meant. And being told by a professor that the way you are interacting with poetry, which I see as a form of artistic expression, being told that your interaction with that art was incorrect was extremely frustrating and a little bit embarrassing in front of an entire class. I studied Emily Dickinson for an entire semester, and I had to do a whole presentation on one of her poems. And I'll tell you what, that was one of the scariest presentations I've ever had to give. And I knew about it for like 3 months leading up to the day that I had to do the presentation, and I was terrified because I was having to give a presentation on a poem that I may have been reading very, very differently than how everybody else was reading it. But it ended up okay. I was very proud of myself, and I never have to study Emily Dickinson again. Now let's get to the good stuff, the creative writing portion of my English degree. This is the entire reason why I wanted to study English. So by this time in my life, I had written 3 books. So I had written Highborn, and then I had written The Actual Highborn, which were 2 very different novels, and I had also written Fire Tongue and was about to start work on Way of Spears. So going into this, I had already written 3 books, and I feel that the creative writing classes I was taking, there was like a creative writing class beginner and then a creative writing class intermediate, and both of those were required for me to graduate. And I do feel like those were aimed more toward students that had never really written fiction before. And I will admit right now that I was a total snob in those classes. And that's all on me. I was not a very nice person. I wasn't very fun to be paired up with or to work with because I was very frustrated. I felt like I've already written 3 books, and then I was sitting in these university classes while my peers were learning the difference between past tense and present tense. And I understand that not everybody gets that distinction. Everybody has to learn about tenses and point of view and, narration and the different types of narration that you can use. I get it. Everybody has to learn that. But for me, coming from a place of having written 3 novels and having to sit in class and grit my teeth while the person next to me tried to figure out if a sentence was past tense or present tense was extremely frustrating because I just felt like I am not learning anything. I could be, at home writing my own book right now and learning a hell of a lot more than I was learning sitting in that beginner's creative writing class. So that was unfortunate, and I want to be honest about that. I don't know what other creative writing, concentrations and majors are like at other universities because I only took the one, but I was not very pleased with it. Moving into my senior year, I was taking the more advanced creative writing classes, and they became based more on, peer reviews and critiquing one another's work. So no longer were we learning about the mechanics of writing, but we were actually writing and critiquing each other's work. And I enjoyed this more. Granted, I was still a snob about it. I would just walk into that class, I would tuck myself away in a corner so I didn't have to talk to anybody, and I would just be like this gloomy Eeyore cloud of grumpiness because I didn't want to be there and I was frustrated by it. And it was within this class that my professor read the first chapter or the first 2 chapters of Way of Spears, and she gave me pretty harsh feedback. I've mentioned this in quite a few of my videos, and it was so startling to receive that harsh feedback that I actually didn't work on Way of Spears for 3 months after receiving her critique. And I just remember walking out of class. It was the last class of the day, so I was walking to my car. It was like a 15-minute walk, and I was on the phone with my dad and talking to him about it and just trying so hard not to cry because I had built myself up to this place of being extremely proud of my work and feeling like I was a step above all the rest, like us snobby English majors are. And to have my professor knock me down like that was extremely painful. But I'm really grateful to it now. I'm grateful that she gave me that really harsh feedback because after those 3 months, I stood back up and I said, I love this book and I don't care what my professor thinks. I'm going to write it because I'm in love with it, and that's all that matters. And that was really important for me to learn, and I think that's important for every single writer to learn because we cannot make everyone happy. I could write a book that I absolutely adore that you could absolutely detest. You could think it's the very worst book on the planet, but to me, and maybe to some other people, it's absolutely amazing. It is a work of art. It's inspiring and glorious and beautiful, and all of those things are true. It can both be the most worthless thing you've ever read and the best thing somebody else has ever read because it's all art. Just like those poems that I was having to read and critique in front of my entire lecture hall classes. So I enjoyed my English degree. I am very grateful to have it. I do feel like I got to expand my horizons with the materials I was reading. I read books like, The God of Small Things and The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, and what else? I read The Handmaid's Tale. I read some heavy, hard-hitting fiction that I really enjoyed and that was fascinating and opened my eyes to the human condition. So I highly recommend studying English if you are interested in it. My creative writing classes, while I am grateful for them, they weren't exactly on par with what I had hoped for. And maybe this is just because they need more development. They need more students to give them feedback so that they can better tailor their programs to, students that are just starting out versus students that have been doing it for a while, and then you have your students that just want to write short stories, and then you have students like me that were writing, full-length fiction novels at that point. So the classroom structure was very difficult with that, especially in critiquing, because if I wanted my novels critiqued, I had to give them, chapter 1 and chapter 2, and then a few months later I had to give them chapter 3 and chapter 4 to critique. So that wasn't very well organized. But for all I know, they might have much better class structure now, and the university you're looking at might be way better off than mine was. Even though I didn't get a lot out of my creative writing classes, I got a hell of a lot out of the college experience. I completely became who I am because of my experiences in college. And I'm not talking just sitting in a college class listening to, a very well-versed professor lecture at you. While that can be amazing and you can learn a lot from them, I'm talking about the experiences of, living with other students in a dorm. I lived with a roommate and she was absolutely fantastic. I still talk to her now. We still hang out when we can. Granted, she's living all the way in Arizona and I'm in Colorado, and we don't see each other as often as I would like. But, I made an amazing friendship out of that. I made amazing friends with the other people that lived on my floor. And then after I was living in the dorm, I moved out and I was living by myself for the first time, and it was absolutely terrifying. I didn't move into a nice, clean apartment for the first time. I literally moved in to a tiny home that was approximately 200 square feet and attached to a hay barn, so that I could take care of all the horses and teach horseback riding lessons. And I talked about this in my latest Get Ready With Me author trivia video. If you're interested in it, it'll be linked up above in the cards. And I was terrified. My parents moved me in there, and then they left and they drove back home. I was an hour and a half away, and I was petrified. I barely knew anybody that lived on the farm. I had just kind of known them over the past year of cleaning stalls and riding horses there. I didn't really know who they were. Not only was I going to be living by myself, but I had accepted a job position as a horseback riding instructor and barn manager, which I had never done before. And it was so scary. Like, there were days that I would just stay in my house and cry because I was so scared of what I was doing, especially for somebody like me that has social anxiety. It was even hard leaving my house on the farm to go see other people that lived and worked on the farm, because it was a very popular, positive community, but I was scared of everybody. So what started out as a terrifying, lonely experience became one of the best and most impactful experiences of my life, because I learned how to be responsible for myself. I learned how to combat loneliness with my own hobbies and interests. I learned how to become, dependent on just myself. Like, there were some days that I was up at the farm. What actually happened was, I was the barn manager and riding instructor for the first year, and the farm was owned and operated by the family. And what happened the second year that I lived there was that whole family went on a sabbatical in Sweden and left the farm and all of the animals and the business in the hands of myself and one other employee. So that year, I just I grew into this person that was able to get shit done. I learned how to drive a horse trailer by myself. I learned to haul hay by myself. I was absolutely just dependent on me, and it was amazing. And I had my little tiny house, and my early videos were filmed there. So if you go all the way back, I have my videos of me sitting there, and I'm sitting in front of my little front door because that was all the light that came in, and you can pretty much see my entire house behind me except for the small bathroom and the small kitchen that were off to the side. But I started YouTube there. I wrote Way of Spears there. I wrote Fire Tongue there too, I think. I wrote Fire Tongue there. I edited Highborn there. I grew into the person I was while living alone an hour and a half from my family and going to school. And that experience changed my entire life. And if I hadn't had the opportunity and the privilege to study at Colorado State University, I don't even know who I would be today. Like, I have no idea where I would be, because I have such confidence from the experiences that I had there that, you know, you can put no monetary value on that. My English degree and studying at CSU was extremely expensive. And to tell you the truth, I'm not using it for anything. It's not like I went and applied for a job and had to show them my nice sparkly resume. I've never done anything like that. You know, I'm very grateful for it, but I'm not using it. It's just sitting up here on the top of my bookshelf. But I would never, you know, I would never change that experience for the world. I would never change anything that I went through. I would never change any of the struggles, because I learned so much about myself. And I think that's part of what university is. So what I am getting at here through this half-hour ramble, I can never film short videos. That's just the truth of who I am, because I love talking to you guys. But the truth of it all is that if you have the opportunity to study at a university or at a community college, both are amazing and have their merits. Study what you are interested in. You do not have to have an English degree to be a writer, because I was a writer way before I started taking English classes, and they didn't even help me learn how to write. Everything I know, I have learned from trial and error. I have written 5 books. Yes, 5. I have written 5 books now, and I'm only now getting to the place where I feel like, okay, maybe I'm figuring this out. I have a lot to learn, but I'm at least getting there. I'm like on the bandwagon now, and I'm slowly learning more. But it took me 5 books to get to that place. And I could have taken 100 writing classes. You know, 100 creative writing classes would never have taught me what I have learned through writing my own books. Because when you write your own book and then you look back at it and it's an absolute piece of crap, and you are able to reflect and say, okay, I wrote this, I'm extremely proud of it, it's not that good, how do I fix it? How do I get better? And then you edit it, and then you edit it, and then you write another book, and you edit that, and you learn more. That is how you become the author of your dreams. That is how you become this writer that you've always wanted to be, is through that trial and error. It's through writing books and then throwing them in the recycle bin because they're no good. I actually don't recommend that. I have saved every single book that I have written, because each one I am extremely proud of, and I would never throw it in the trash or the recycle bin. So I actually don't recommend that you do either of those things. But you guys, study whatever the hell you want. If you are interested in microbiology, I don't really understand you, but go and study it. If you are interested in fashion design, if you are interested in marketing, that could actually really help you if you want to be a self-published author or even a traditionally published author. If you want to study business or animal sciences or psychology, anything that you are interested in, study that, because the experiences that you have, the connections you form with people, that is what is going to help you become a stronger, better writer. It's through having those complex experiences that you are able to then relay those experiences into your writing. You know, I feel like I really learned about relationships and friendships when I was in college, because I was forming long-lasting, important relationships. You know, even now as I'm out of college, I am learning more about people every single day. I'm learning more about myself every single day, and that is what is making me a better writer. So, if you guys made it all the way through this video, thank you very much. My tea is now the perfect temperature. Still too strong. It needs some more hot water. Well, thank you guys if you are still here. I know this was another extremely long video. Let me know in the comments down below if this has given you any guidance. I also want to know how many of you majored in English or creative writing. If you did, what was your experience? Yeah, so if you are somebody that's gone to school for something other than English/creative writing, I'd love to know down below what you studied and if you feel like it has helped you like on your author journey, whether that's in writing, you know, complex human relationships, or marketing, or advertising, or, you know, publicly speaking, or filming videos. Like, you know, I've known people that are authors that majored in film studies because they wanted to be screenwriters or directors or what have you. Like, you really could study anything so long as you enjoy it. So that is all I have for you today. If you guys have any video requests or any questions for me, please feel free to drop them in the comments down below. Thank you so much for listening to my it was a little bit of like a tea time, tea chat about my experience as an English major. And I'm going to see you guys in my next video. Bye!